Now, as I said a few episodes ago, when the game was first released, this outpost here was where everyone would meet to do high-end player versus player gameplay, because PvP was spread all around the world. There were arenas you could visit, and this was where the international tournament, Heroes Ascent, took place. The idea is that there was an entrance to the rift from here. Anyway, a while after the game was released, they decided to move all of the PvP to their own place, to a different sort of mini-continent called the Battle Isles, where the Zishian order sort of dictate it all. And now that's where you go if you want to play arenas, or if you want to do guild versus guild, or if you want to take part in the international tournament that is Heroes Ascent. So when they did that, they needed to find a new use for this outpost. So one day when they did this outpost, they came up with a story that this outpost was attacked, and now people can't come here to do player versus player. They have to go to the Battle Isles. This place has been corrupted. You see these giant claw things that have come out? These are the signs of demons that have taken over the outpost. You'll learn a lot more about that plot and who those demons were in Nightfall. But for now, let's speak to Chirai. This is where his story ends, or begins, depending on how you want to see it. So let's speak to him. He says that chaos reigns at the tomb of the Primeval Kings. I never thought I would see the day. For centuries I have joined forces with those bold ones who sought to reach the Hall of the Heroes from these sacred grounds. And I was doing just that when the world went mad. One moment I was moving to claim the centre of the hall. The next, darkness filled my vision, and twisted, nightmarish creatures erupted from everywhere at once. My allies were besieged, and I could not reach them. All I could do was fight my way through the darkness to get word to those outside. Their dying screams still ring in my spectral ears. These abominations must be stopped. They cannot be allowed to reach and corrupt any more gateways to the Hall of the Heroes. So now, instead of this being where the international tournament takes place, now there is like a side quest, if you will, but quite a lengthy one, where players can try and defeat the demons that have taken over this passage to the Hall of the Heroes. So this temple is quite a grand place. I love the look of that, the way that's sort of been turfed up by that claw. And this is a side quest that I might do. What do these acolytes have to say? General Yukaru of the Zishian Order has decreed that all those seeking the Hall of the Heroes should now enter through a different gateway in the Battle Isles. That portal is safe for now from the tendrils of chaos you find enshrouding the tomb of the Primeval Kings. If you seek the Hall of the Heroes, first use the ship off the coast of Lion's Arch to travel to the great temple of Balthazar. My brothers will guide you from there. Train with the dedication of a Zishian acolyte, and perhaps you will earn well-deserved fame among the peoples of your land and the lands beyond. By the way, if you seek the hirelings that once stood here, you will find they have already departed for the Battle Isles. I believe I can hear the obnoxious one, Orion, I think his name was, even at this distance. So the idea is that the henchmen all moved as well. Let's speak to this guy. We must join together, Peter Redhill, and strike at the darkness that warped this portal into the tombs. Balthazar will light our way and guide us through the shadows in which these twisted creatures lurk. No one, not even the foulest servants of chaos and evil, can defeat the Zishian when the flaming hands of Holy Balthazar guides our blades. Mark my words, we will be toasting a great victory here before the next fortnight is out. So, oh, and one last one. Surely the gods have cursed the Zishian. Why else would we be called to leave the sea bound for this sea of sand? And now this disturbance that threatens to shake even my Zishian nerves. So the Zishian are a faction of people, I believe they're Canthan, so they're from Cantha originally, but they're dedicated to Balthazar, and they pretty much govern all of the player versus player that happens. And a couple of the Zishian have come here to overlook this portal. So that's what's going on here. This isn't a part of this isn't a part of the main story. This is just kind of what happens to Chirai Ossa, and I may end up doing this in sort of like a little mini-series after I've completed Prophecies, which is fast coming, because we've got 2 chapters left, but neither of those chapters have many. In fact, one of them only has one quest. The last chapter only has a single quest, so the missions are going to be hard, but I do think I'll be finished soon enough. So when that happens, maybe I'll do a mini-series showing all of these side quests, which will include this place, and it will also include the 2 realms of the gods and another place up in the mountains. 1 second. Alright, so let's read the outpost description for this place. Tomb of the Primeval Kings. Legends remain of noble spirits who stand watch over the tombs. If there is a passage between the mortal world and the underworld, surely such spirits would know how to find it. So if you see the picture here, this shows the tomb looking all golden and whole and complete, and that was before it was attacked and corrupted, and it comes from a screenshot of the place, I think, before the update occurred where this all became twisted and warped. So you might be wondering, you'll remember that the Hall of the Heroes is said to be in the centre of the mist, the centre of all things. And you might be wondering why a portal into the mists, and then even further into the Hall of the Heroes, is in a random tomb in the middle of the desert. And I can explain that. It's the story of Lord Odren, and I'm just going to read from the manuscripts that came in the game just to explain how this happened and who Lord Odren was, and why there's a portal here and why there's another portal to the Mists and the Hall of the Heroes out in the Battle Isles where the Zishian order come from. Because remember, the Zishian are telling us to now go to that other portal because this one's become corrupt and dangerous. So this is the story of Lord Odren. Using a spell of his own devising and the sacrifice of many souls, Lord Odren, a powerful arcanist who specialised in the study of temporal distortions, opened a portal that offered him access to the mists and eventually into the rift itself. The spirits who had given their lives to earn access to the hallowed afterlife were outraged. They turned their fury upon the intruder, attacking Lord Odren with all their legendary collective might. But it had been hundreds of years since most of the spirits had interacted with the physical world, and none of them had ever done so in their shadow form. As powerful as they had been in life, they could not harm the physical manifestation of the Wizard Lord. Not yet. He was untouchable here in the land of the dead, and he travelled freely through to the Hall of Heroes. Over the years, Lord Odren learned to use the rift to travel across the multiverse. He opened portals on nearly all of the different worlds, turning the rift into his own personal gateway. But though he was clever, the Wizard Lord was himself only mortal, and eventually the spirits of the Hall discovered a way to interact with the corporeal world. Odren's last physical journey through the rift cost him his mortal life. The Wizard Lord was torn to shreds by hundreds of angry souls, seeking retribution for his trespasses. When Odren's mortal body died, the wards and enchantments that kept his portals hidden failed, and the gates to the Hall of Heroes were laid open to all who were able to find them. The Wizard Lord had been canny though. Odren knew that one day he too might be ensconced in the Hall of Heroes, so he hid the portals in the most treacherous locations he could find. The fear of death, he surmised, would keep the meek at bay. But a long time has passed, and it is clear now that the Wizard Lord, like the gods before him, underestimated the greed of men. Over time, the whereabouts of the portals have been revealed. Though they remain difficult to get to, there are those with enough skill and bravery to reach them, and every day the numbers of intruders to the Hall of Heroes rises. An unending battle for supremacy rages inside the hall. Spirit inhabitants have taken to playing groups of mortals against each other for sport, placing bets on which will make it furthest and giving special aids to those they favour. Control of the hall itself has its rewards and its costs as well. So that is what Churai Os is now doing. He's found one of the portals, and the way to the Hall of the Heroes is open for him. And before this all became corrupt, he would go with teams of humans, and they would all start fighting each other to figure out who was rightfully in control of the Hall of the Heroes. That now all takes place at the Battle Isles with the Zishian Order. So that's the story of the portals, which are supposedly hidden all around the world. And I don't know where we know it from, but apparently one of the portals is underneath the old capital city of Ascalon, Draskir. Not Rin, but the one before that, Draskir. You remember we were there in the ruins of Sirmia mission. That's that. which again is a side quest we will eventually do, but that's not what we want to know. We didn't become Ascended to do that. We became Ascended to get the gift of true sight. How can that help us though? Well, the Flame Seeker prophecies were written by Glint, and we now have access to the Dragon's Lair, where we can find Glint and figure out what's going on. Before this mission though, now that we're Ascended, there's some other stuff we can do. We've always been a warrior monk. You remember back in pre-searing, I said it was almost impossible to change your secondary profession until a very, very long time. Now that we're Ascended and closer to the gods, we can do that. We can actually change our secondary profession, which is something vital for me in the coming chapters, because I'm sure I will need to use skills from the other professions in some of these upcoming missions, which I'm just dreading. So, but I also have the rule where I can't come back to a region after I've left it. I can't map travel to one at least. So, but this desert, after we complete the Dragon's Lair, we're going to learn a lot from Glint, and we're going to go back to fight the battle with the Shining Blade. Which means that we'll be leaving the desert after this mission. That'll be the end of this chapter. And to change our secondary profession, we can go and talk to these ghosts that we were speaking to in a lot of these different outposts. So let's go, for instance, to the Seeker's Passage. Now that we're Ascended, the ghosts have got more interesting things to say to us. So this is Telius. You remember I was speaking to her before. She says that as a follower of Melandru, she has a deep love and respect for nature. Indeed, all rangers, even those who do not view our craft in a spiritual light, rely on the rule of nature to exercise their talents. That is why we so abhor that all is unnatural and corrupt. Ages ago, a power-mad mage named Sibithia unleashed the monstrous Storm Riders upon this land. Yes, I know the Storm Riders, we found loads of those. One of her first and most powerful roams the Salt Flats to this very day. An ancient and corrupt creature the centaurs call Yixo-Sith. Do not be enticed by the path of Sibithia followed. Destroy this foul beast, and let us call you an ally and a friend of nature. I will hunt down this creature. So if I do this, she will change me from a secondary monk to a secondary ranger. Once I unlock secondary ranger, I can switch between monk and ranger as much as I like. So, let's go destroy the first Stormkin ever, well, one of the first that was ever created. And then we can go to the Dragon's Den.